It's the Ross Tucker Football Podcast.
Oh, yeah, it is. But it's not just any Ross Tucker Football Podcast. It is a Finish Strong Friday, presented, of course, by DraftKings. And I'm just realizing right now, since I was in Los Angeles all week, just took the red eye back, landed an hour and a half ago, I totally forgot to pick winners this week. So no Mike Singletary. I will rectify that for Sunday night's show. We will do a show Sunday night. I will have winners on Sunday night. That is my bad. I got to tell you guys, I was crazy busy, but should have some really good NFL playing guests coming up over the next couple weeks as a result of the contacts I made there and the cell phone numbers I got at the broadcast boot camp, which was, by the way, a really cool experience. Always great to see and hang out with guys like the McCourty twins and Larry Fitzgerald, Richard Sherman, Cam Hayward, Thomas Davis, all just really awesome, impressive guys. Yeah, I don't hang around active players that often, so it was great to get a chance to know those guys a little bit better, give them a few tips as they're trying to enter into the media potentially, or at least exploring it. It was awesome. Really, really awesome. Loved being around those guys and appreciative of NFL Network and NFL player engagement in terms of bringing me in to be one of the faculty members. Hard to believe that 15 years ago was the first ever NFL broadcast boot camp. And I was one of the guys. I was one of the people that applied and got in. And now here we are 15 years later. I think I've been to every one that they have had since then. So I forgot the winners. I have a pretty good excuse. The good news for you guys is that means you got a couple days to still be the spread the word winner at Ross Tucker NFL or at Ross Tucker Pod on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook. I check them all. You guys know that I check them all. Facebook shares or comments, Instagram likes or comments. Same with the Twitter, especially the quote tweets. Love that stuff. You can be the sponsor confirmation email winner. I'm going to tell you about Raycon earbuds a little bit later. Love some Raycon earbuds. Was all over it when I was working out on the plane, back and forth. And then the YouTube shout out, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL is always awesome. Other than that, very excited about today's guest. Very excited about the big show. This is a guy that I've wanted to have on the show for a long time. It's big show time.
The Big Show.
As promised, we are joined by a guy that I have long admired and wanted to get on the show for a long time for a variety of reasons. You can check him out on Twitter at Big Duke 50. You can see the links to everything he's got there with his link tree. He is located in Frisco, Texas. He's the guy, as far as I know. I'm sure there's other guys out there, but he's the guy I know when it comes to O-line scouting and development. Duke, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Ross, thank you for having me, man. It's we've been trying to get this particular episode, put out, and I'm happy to finally be here and talk some shop with you, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so, okay. I want to start with exactly what you would say it is that you do, because I feel like there's a bunch of different things. Like in my head, right, you kind of help guys get ready for the combine, but then you help them get ready for their pro days and working out with O-line coaches. But I know in the summer, you're getting guys ready for the season. So those can be different things. How would you describe what it is that you do with O-line masterminds and everything else you got going?
Yeah, so that's a great question because people would look at it and say, oh, he trains football players. But what you just alluded to is spot on. I kind of look at what I do and what our brand is in a couple of different phases. The first phase is the rookie transition phase, which is also known as combine prep. And I call it the rookie transition phase because you don't come to me just to prepare for the combine. You come to me to kind of check that box of being prepared for the combine, but it's also the transitions you into taking that first step from the college game to what it's going to take to be in a building and to be able to be a successful player on Sundays. So we keep a tight schedule. We train during that 8 to 10 week period, 2 to 3 times a day. We're training the mind, we're training the body, we're training the craft, we're looking at tape. We're talking about how to conduct yourself in the building. We're talking about the importance for prehab and the importance for staying on top of the body, importance of nutrition, importance of supplementation, the importance of being able to control your own narrative in that regard. And then, of course, the physical stuff that everybody loves to see. So that 8 to 10 week program, we think is very crucial. But then again, we try to make it a great experience, but we tell them like this 8 to 10 week program is just checking the box that we need to check for your Senior Bowl or East-West Shrine game, and then check the box for the combine, and then checking the box for your pro day, because we know those are just events. They're not the destination. We don't per se put too much stock in, earning it then. Of course, it's something that we got to do. But the bottom line is we want to walk into that door after being drafted and be dominant football players, or getting it kind of right away. Because as we know, there's no such thing really as pro ready until you get there. And you can attest to that. So that first phase, that rookie transition program, and then we've got our veteran off-season program, which, we've got 40 veteran guys that come down here and train from anywhere to, 8 to 10 weeks, getting ready for that off-season program. We've got our O-line Mastermind Summit, which is the largest aggregation of college players, NFL players, coaches, medical professionals, and it's a 2 or 3 day event where we all get in a room and we talk best practices for anything from the ground up for O-line training, you name it. I mean, we talk about how to navigate and talk to the media. We talk about how to take care of your body, the importance of keeping track of injuries and keeping track of potential, even like small things. So it's really a holistic approach. And then I think the final phase that everybody loves is kind of, when it comes full circle in the actual training aspect, which some people see the videos and how that relates to all the evaluation. But like I said, it's kind of a 3 or 4 headed monster in terms of what I do. There's really never an off season for me because now I've dappered into the business side of it. As you know, we'll probably talk about it here with the beer coming out and some of the things we're doing with the bourbon with Buffalo Trace. But it's been crazy, to say the least.
It's awesome, man. Is there a part of it that you like the most, or I'm assuming you like every phase of it? You like the versatility. I guess most guys probably like the on-field stuff, but is there something that really is what gets you going?
All of it. And the reason being is my true off season is when those guys go to camp in August. I don't really take time off because I do consulting with teams, but August, September, October, I'm a little more laxed in terms of the physical demands of me being able to have to show up and be available to players. But I take that time to really evaluate myself, self-scout, so to speak, areas I can get better, areas that we can improve the overall program, all 3 heads in terms of the rookie transition program, the summit and educational program, and then the veteran program. And what we really do, Ross, is we look at that, and I kind of peel back the layers and I understand that I love all of it. And I kind of, like I said, I mentally prepare, and I know, all right, starting late December, the 8 to 10 weeks is going to be a grind with the rookies. And then the next 8 to 10 weeks with the veterans is going to be a grind, and that'll put us right into the summer training and the summit. So there's not one thing that sticks out as me loving. I love the entire process. I love seeing one of the best things I love, to be honest with you, is after we check the box of the combine and the pro days, is taking those rookies and then putting them in the veteran groups. I love that part of it because it's like the rites of passage. They've kind of gone from being in their own group, of these 16 guys preparing, and now we start to put your Evan Neals and Charles Crosses with Teron Armstead and Lane Johnson, and that's where and Rashawn Slater, that's where the real learning ends up happening as well. Because now they're starting to pick up on some of the atomic habits that these veteran guys have, and it puts them that much ahead of the curve when they step into a building.
So many good things I want to ask you now. I didn't know about the consulting. Tell me about the consulting part of it.
Yeah, I've got a couple of teams that reach out to me for just kind of all things O-line, everything that we just talked about in terms of the aggregation of information with some of the advanced scouting stuff, also perspective on players, even in the strength and conditioning and medical staff. We kind of all come together and spearhead there. And really, for me, it's not so much about having all the answers, but it's being able to work with teams and understand what their objective is and what they're trying to get done, and how I can help them maximize players' potential. It also doesn't hurt when, a lot of their old O-linemen, there's various teams that have, 4 and sometimes 5 O-linemen, their starters and a couple of their backups that are out training with me. So it's one of those things where, like, you take notice of that as a front office and team, and then you realize that, hey, maybe this guy can help us. And so it's really kind of been that the past 4 years. We're doing some consulting with various teams.
Should have probably started with this, Duke, but your background. Everybody right now is like, okay, they get it. You're the O-line guy. But how did you become the O-line guy? I don't think you play in the NFL. How did you become the O-line guru that all these guys go to?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and it's really simple. I was an undersized offensive lineman that went to a Division II university, which we won't name because I hate them now because they got rid of football. But it was one of those things where I understood that I needed to control my controllables. And my controllables, being an undersized offensive lineman, was how hard I worked in the weight room and on my craft, the playbook, understanding the big picture, the grand scheme. And so those 3 things I knew that I could pour all my heart into, and whatever happened, happened. And every year they tried to replace me. But every year I can continue to train harder, continue to develop the technique, and continue to understand the big picture of the scheme. And so I immediately got into coaching. I had a brief stint in arena football, and that didn't work out for me. I mean, plain and simple, I was undersized, and there wasn't really a spot for me. I wasn't a center at all. I played guard in college football, but I was forced to play center in an indoor game, and that game is completely different than the outdoor game. So I was cut from there, and I immediately got into coaching. And being cut and getting into coaching was the best thing that ever happened to me. Started off at College of the Redwoods Junior College as the assistant strength and conditioning coach, but also the offensive line coach and run game coordinator. Had 3 really good seasons there. Then I went back to my alma mater, Humboldt State, ended up being the defensive line coach and assistant strength coach at Humboldt State. The entire time, though, I always worked with the O-line coach to help develop O-line because that was my niche, that was my passion. So I had a unique opportunity to go down to Arizona for a company that I will not name, that trains or did train offensive linemen at one point. They still do, but it is what it is. But worked very closely down there and bought some new things to that brand in terms of the Olympic lifting and a lot of the other stuff with my strength and conditioning background. And it didn't work out for me there as well. So I was kind of off the scene in 2014, 15. And what ended up happening was I ended up going down to Charlotte, and it was like Jeff Schwartz last year. And people didn't know that I was still training guys, because I had, for 2012, 13, 14, working at this other company, I had a pretty good rapport with guys I was training, and then I kind of disappeared. Well, we ended up putting out some videos of me training Jeff Schwartz, And all of a sudden, my phone started blowing up like, hey, we didn't know you were training guys again. I'm going to come and train with you next offseason. So that next offseason in 2017, I ended up having, Ron Leary, Jeremy Parnell, DJ Fluker, Brian Winters, Jeff Allen, Hugh Thornton, Jeff Schwartz before he retired. And so I went from kind of being out of the business then to being back in the business and just slowly building. And the big thing that kind of blew this whole thing up, so to speak, was I was watching the NFL Top 100, and Lane Johnson, who I had trained in the past, had got on and said, you know what? He goes, we need to all get in a room and figure out how to stop these guys. And the light bulb went off. I go, oh man. I had just read the Mastermind Principle by Napoleon Hill that talked about getting together in a room and, the aggregation of information and, streamlining success. So when Lane said that, I said, dude, we absolutely have to get in a room and figure out how to stop these D linemen. And he said, what are you thinking? I said, just what I said. Let's put together a summit. Let's talk best practices. And so the rest at that, as they say, is history. So that was probably April of 2017 or 2018 maybe. From April to July is all we took to get that first summit together. And we only had 27 guys, but it was 27 guys all talking best practices, going through technique, not really any lifting. It was all the mental part. And then that 27 turned into 50. And then that 50 turned into 100. And then last year we had 220 guys at the summit. And the summit piece, the training piece has just all continued to skyrocket.
That is awesome. And now you've got your own beer, man, which is incredible. I've seen it, the O-Line Mastermind. I haven't drank it. I don't know if it's out yet. But I know you and I have a mutual friend who's a big fan of yours and offensive line play and what you're doing. The guys over at Hop and Sting. I tag you when I post my beers every Friday and Saturday night. I tag it because I know you're a beer guy as well. Yeah. But tell me about the O-Line Masterminds beer.
Yeah, absolutely. We have got the Masterminds IPA coming out, and it's fitting. You know when it's coming out? It is coming out at 7 p.m. April 28th, the night of the draft. So we're going to have a big party down at Hop and Sting Brewery for the first round of the draft. And that'll be the first tasting of the Mastermind IPA. We'll make sure you get a couple of cases, up there to you. But yeah, our mutual friend down at Hop and Sting has been very great. They've been great to work with. And the funny thing about it, Ross, not even this, is one of the other founders of Hop and Sting Brewery. Me and him went to college together. I actually used to throw him out of bars when I bounced in college. So there's another connection there. But I'm fired up for it. We had great success with our partnership with Buffalo Trace past couple of years with the Mastermind, O-Line Mastermind, single barrel select bourbon that stores around here can't keep on the shelf. So I think the Mastermind IPA people are going to absolutely love.
That is awesome, man. I love that you're having it during the first round of the draft because every year now it seems like you have a couple guys go in the first round. But what's probably more impressive is the guys you work with, the Creed Humphreys, the Trey Smiths that don't go in the first round and end up having so much success right away. I hope you're a consultant for the Chiefs, because if you're not, they're doing it wrong.
I talk to the Chiefs very often.
I bet you do, man. That is awesome. The thing I think is interesting, watching the videos of the O-Line Masterminds event, and this is the last point I want to make, Duke. I had 9 O-Line coaches in my career, 9. And the thing that I think is so interesting, they all taught different stuff.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know how good I could have been, Duke, if I just stayed with one my whole career. Maybe I could have been a little better. I don't know. But I kind of became a jack of all trades. First of all, I played all 5 positions. And then I would go from one O-line coach to the next, and they had totally different techniques. And unless you're like a Lane Johnson type, they want you to do their technique. They want you to do what they're teaching. So I never really got to perfect one way. But the thing I did notice from seeing and being around some great coaches, some great players, there's more than one way to skin a cat. I
There
mean,
is.
you can do it differently, and that's a big misnomer. Is people think, oh, this is how you have to do it. It's not the case at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the one thing that I think the young guys benefit greatly from hearing from the guys that have done it, the guys that have been in the arena. But there's a lot of ego in coaching because you'll talk to coaches that swear their way to do it is the only way to do it, and the other coach is stupid and he doesn't know what he's talking about. But then, as a guy like you who's had 9 different O-line coaches, and you can start to take and fill up the toolbox, so to speak, with a little bit of here, a little bit from here, and then you realize, like, hey, it's not so much about a way to do it. It's about multiple ways of doing it and understanding who your opponent is, that you may have 3 different ways that you're going to get the job done based upon who you're playing. And that means the way you have to set. Now, I've got a select set of rules for pass protection that has 2 variations of it. So, for instance, in pass protection, I say the first 2 most important things is 1A is a great stance. 1B is get the hell out of your stance. So many times guys get beat because they don't get out their stance with a sense of urgency. Okay, now where the switch up comes is the next thing we want to do is for your interior guys, create space off the line of scrimmage, or for the offensive tackles, get to your spot. Well, here's where the variation comes. If you're playing like a team like the Washington football team or the Washington Commanders, who their D tackles now have that hub where they're going to bull rush you from underneath, we don't want to necessarily set them half man and inside out and then also back up off the line too much. We want to cover them up and also maybe close space instead of create space. That way they're forced to have to reset their hands instead of getting into that bull rush where they hook you. So small stuff like that where there's, depending on who you play, you're going to have switch ups. You're going to have caveats to your initial rules. And the ways of this is how I want it done and the only way to do it, that shit is dead now, Ross, because these pass rushers have become so dynamic. I mean, there was just a high school, like 5-star, the number 1 recruit who I think he ran a 10-300. So
I saw that.
you got Jordan Davis, who is 6'7", 345, that ran a 4.7. And all these guys are lethal with their hands, and they're asked to do stuff naturally, coming forward off the ball while we're retreating. So with all that being said, we need to find a way to get the job done, and sometimes getting that job done doesn't look the same all the time.
Totally agree. And I think different body types, different guys have more success. I was a terrible puncher. I was much better with the underhand grip. I really did not like creating space or distance. I would try to, no matter what I was playing, I would try to close, because of my arm length, I would try to close the distance as soon as possible. I jumped guys all the time. I think guys ultimately have to figure out what works best for them, and their body type. Lane is super athletic. He's got that crazy explosive first jump. I mean, everybody's got their thing that's best for them. And I think that's probably the lesson I learned is like, it's like college and studying. We're like, figure out what works for you. Figure out what helps you get the job done. That is awesome. I think it's fantastic that you get to do what you do for a living. I'm a little jealous, to be honest with you. That is amazing. Check him out on social media at Big Duke 50. He does an at, wait a minute. Yeah, Big Duke 50. Then I went to your link tree says the Big Duke 50. So
that's for Instagram, I believe.
Okay, Instagram's the Big Duke 50. And if you're in the Dallas area, you got to get the O-Line Masterminds beer when it comes out. That's going to be delicious stuff, because I went to Hop and Sting the day before the national championship game, FCS, and it was epic. I love that place and love those guys. Duke, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. Really appreciate it.
Ross, no problem, man. We'll see you down here at the summit, and we'll crack a beer.
I think what Duke does is awesome. I think I would really enjoy that job, that business, just like I really enjoy my Raycon wireless earbuds. Think about whatever it is that you want to accomplish, right? the rest of this year. How about, I'll tell you this much about my Raycon earbuds. There's no doubt in my mind that I work out better when I'm listening to music through my Raycon wireless earbuds, especially like Rocky soundtrack. I have a whole playlist that's all just workout music. And so when I'm on the road or in my own house, I pop them in. They've got the optimized gel tips for the perfect in-ear fit. I've never even gotten close to them running out of battery. It's got 8 hours of playtime, 32-hour battery life. And what I like about it, for you guys especially, it's half the price of other premium audio brands. Half the price. It's no wonder Raycon's everyday earbuds have over 48,000 five-star reviews. Think about that, 48,000. Right now, you guys, my listeners, you can get even 15% more off your Raycon order at buyraycon.com/Tucker. That's buyraycon.com/Tucker to save 15% on Raycons. Buyraycon.com/Tucker.
Tuck's Takes.
Hey, Ross, good morning. Let's start with Steve Wilkes and Ray Horton joining the Brian Flores lawsuit as some audio came out about sham interview processes in 2016.
Right. So this is very noteworthy, right? Because originally it was Brian Flores and he was doing this on his own. He was the only one against the NFL and against the Dolphins and the Giants, and he's added the Texans. It's a little bit different in my mind when other people like Steve Wilkes and Ray Horton join the lawsuit. Little bit different when they join the lawsuit and it's not just a lone man standing. That's number one. Number two, there's audio of Mike Mularkey on a podcast, my former coach with the Buffalo Bills, not, by the way, when he was on my podcast, because he's been on at least once, maybe twice. I've had Mike Mularkey on the show. So it was not then. It was not when Coach Mularkey was on my show, but I think he was on like a Steelers podcast. And he said that he was asked about his regrets, and he regretted being a part of what he felt like was a sham interview process because he had been told he was getting the job before they interviewed other people, the Titans head coaching job, before they interviewed other people like Ray Horton, which seems very problematic for the NFL. Now, next time I have Andrew Brandt on, we'll have to talk about it because I still feel like I always wonder, what's the end game here? Is it just somebody getting money? Is it like actual change? What exactly is the end game here with this situation? I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that none of this is good for the NFL. The fact that two more guys joined the lawsuit isn't good. The fact that Mike Mularkey has this audio basically confirming that they had already decided to hire him before they went ahead and interviewed any minorities, including Ray Horton. So we'll see how it plays out. There's always a whole bunch of legal wrangling going on in any of these situations. But I think it's certainly noteworthy and just reinforces that this is going to be a topic in the NFL for a long time.
Tuck's Takes.
Cleveland Browns signed center Ethan Posick. Falcons signed lineman Jermaine Fetty, linebacker Rashaan Evans. Bucks in quarterback Blaine Gabbert and Keanu Neal. Kareem Jackson signs back with the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Falcons need to get any solid players they can. Fetty has some positional, versatility. Obviously, their head coach, Arthur Smith, knows Rashaan Evans from their time together in Tennessee. The Bucks feel like they have a lot of quarterbacks now. Brady, Gabbert, Griffin, Trask. Like, how many of these guys are they going to continue to keep? I'm not sure I totally understand, like, why Griffin's still there. If he's not the number two, you'd think Trask is ready to be the number three. I don't know what the deal is there. Maybe Brady just likes him and wants him back on the roster. That's probably good enough. It's probably all you need. As for Kareem Jackson, he's really had an outstanding career. When he moved to safety, it totally changed his career, and it looks like Posick might end up being the Browns' new starting center with them moving on from J.C. Tretter.
Tuck's Takes.
Houston Texans are giving Brandon Cooks a 2-year extension. Your thoughts?
Well, that's really interesting, Bri, because it looked like they were going to trade him. I think a lot of people thought he was available for a trade. And, Brandon had a good year last year. He's had a good career. He's been traded, I think, 2 or 3 times already, and people thought he was going to be traded again. But instead, I guess the Texans said no. And the 2-year extension can pay him upwards of $20 million. He was already under contract for this year. So now he's under contract through 2024. But that was sort of the Texans' way of saying, we are not going to be trading Brandon Cooks. He's staying.
Tuck's Takes.
And one final note, the Tennessee Titans are going to start accepting Bitcoin as payment.
I don't know if you saw this, Bri. It's for I think season tickets. I think it's for luxury suites. And I think that's probably, I don't follow the Bitcoin stuff that much, but I would imagine that that's pretty significant for Bitcoin as a currency. Anytime anyone says they'll accept it as payment, that even further legitimizes cryptocurrencies in general, Bitcoin in particular, and is probably a positive. Plus, it's a marketing, right? Anytime somebody says they'll accept it, it's marketing, which is a positive because more people will know about it, more people will investigate it, maybe more people will invest in it. So that is significant. They're the first NFL team that will accept Bitcoin as payment, which I thought was really noteworthy. Really noteworthy. The other things that are noteworthy, we're going to have an awesome week next week. I'm going to have some winners for you Sunday night. We got some shout outs for you. Always Evergreen Economics, go-bangles.com, steakhousesports.com, humanheadnyc.com, Sporticulture, and Pizza Boy Brewing. Other than that, and myfrontpagestory.com. We are exactly a month away from Mother's Day. The time to engage is now. Get your significant other or your mom or any of the moms in your life the greatest Mother's Day gift ever, myfrontpagestory.com. I think we're done here.
Thanks for listening to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Make sure to also subscribe to the Fantasy Feast, Even Money, Business of Sports, and College Draft. All available at Apple Podcasts, rosstucker.com, or wherever podcasts can be found.
A lot of times on the show, I mentioned DraftKings. Here's what you need to know. You got to be 21 or older, New Jersey, Indiana, or Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER, or in Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT. By the way, if what I was talking about included a deposit bonus, doesn't always, sometimes it does. Deposit bonus requires 25 times playthrough, and deposit bonuses are paid out in site credit.